Hey everyone, it's Spooktober again. I'll be doing some videos talking about horror games, movies, and hopefully other stuff as well. Starting off, I just want to establish that anything horror themed is fair game here. So, for instance, both a movie like Friday the 13th and Paranorman are eligible for Spooktober, even if the latter isn't exactly a horror movie. With that out of the way, let's get into our subject. In case you're not familiar with your gaming history, Sierra Entertainment were absolute trailblazers within the realm of point and click adventure games, being responsible for classic franchises of the genre such as King's Quest. Their founder, Roberta Williams, might be legit one of the most based women to have ever worked in video games. If you don't believe me, look no further than one of their earlier games, Softborn Adventures. Yes, that's really the name of it, which features as its cover a picture of three topless women in a hot tub. You see the woman on the right? That is Roberta Williams. Suffice to say, Sierra is a big deal, and they dabbled in their fair share of horror games, such as Phantasmagoria and the subject of today's video, Gabriel Knight. Sins of the Fathers is the first in the venerated Gabriel Knight series of games, following the misadventures of a struggling writer in the town of New Orleans. The games are all point-and-click adventures, no complex control schemes here. You just click around the screen and interact with stuff, solving various logic puzzles. Gameplay-wise, there's just not much to say here. You can go to a map screen to travel around New Orleans, rehear conversations you've had with characters to try and pick up clues which might help you on your way. You can look at points of interest, grab certain items, and use them on the environment. Very typical for games of this genre. Overall, the game isn't brain dead and in fact has some pretty challenging puzzles, but I wouldn't say it's like the toughest puzzle game you ever played or anything. I mean, there's some wild leaps in logic they expect you to make, and you better save often, but you should be able to grasp what you're supposed to be doing quickly enough. Now, not being able to finish the day because you missed a microscopic item somewhere is some BS. Okay, with the gameplay out of the way, let's talk about the main meat of this thing, the story. Gabriel Knight follows our titular character, a struggling, alcoholic, possibly bisexual, but definitely promiscuous writer who manages to barely scrape by thanks solely to whatever profits he squeezes out of his bookstore in New Orleans. Gabe's monotonous routine of stumbling out of bed, flirting with his assistant Grace, and continually not getting any work done in his book is interrupted by a series of grisly murders, which seemingly have some sort of connection to voodoo, and to some strange nightmares our hero's been having. Seeing in these crimes what he needs to find inspiration for his novel, Gabe sets out to investigate the murders and learn whatever he can about voodoo. Little does Gabriel know, he has a very old, very personal connection to these crimes. Alright, that's the general plot without spoilers. Gabe has a week to figure out what the hell is going on with these murders and interact with several persons of interest in New Orleans to do that. Now, the premise isn't exactly mind-blowing, but the script of this game is legit fantastic. You get drip-fed elements of the mystery, and the game does a great job at making the world feel lived in. Characters, even minor ones, are memorable. The town of New Orleans is thoroughly fleshed out, and there's some really neat tidbits about voodoo and other occult subjects, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised to hear a great deal of historical research went into writing this game. About the characters, Gabe is a dick, and I love him. He's a selfish, irresponsible train wreck of a person who gets thrust into a situation he's woefully ill-equipped to handle, but he's such a stubborn bastard, he'll try to finesse his way through it anyway. Our guy goes through a great deal of development throughout the game, but he never loses that lovable asshole quality that I personally enjoy. He's also voiced by actual legend Tim Curry, who is doing the most laughable Southern accent ever conceived of, I think. I fucking love it. Grace is the Watson to Gabe's Sherlock, the down-to-earth voice of reason, except she's a cute Japanese girl, so an upgrade in every conceivable regard. Some notable side characters include Detective Mosley, Gabe's buddy in the NOPD who helps him get some insight on the cases in exchange for empty promises of being featured in his book. He's played by none other than Mark Hamill, who's doing such a good job with his accent, I legit went the entire game without recognizing him. Then there's Dr. John, a historian and voodoo expert played by Mr. Worf himself, Michael Dorn. So we get both Star Wars and Star Trek represented, in case you weren't aware this game was made by real geeks. Finally, the game's narrator is Virginia Capers, owner of quite possibly the most soothing female voice ever put to gaming. The lady gives those ASMR thoughts on YouTube a run for their simp money, though admittedly her 2B cosplays probably aren't as fire. In short, Gabriel Knight is the kind of game you show to dumbasses who think games only started having good writing in the past 5 years. It really is hard to overstate just how well the city of New Orleans is brought to life, its different points of interest, factions, and inhabitants changing and progressing in a way that makes the whole thing feel alive. Top shelf world building. Something else the game excels at is its atmosphere. The soundtrack is pretty simple but gets the job done, and the aesthetics are extremely charming. I love pre-rendered backgrounds, and the game is pretty much all that. Usually, I played Gabriel Knight during nighttime, right before bed, and I think that's the perfect setting for it. Turn down the lights, get cozy, and just go solve some puzzles and get immersed in the game. I promise it's a tremendously comfy experience. Soon enough, you'll be just like me, fondly remembering the nights spent playing this game and randomly remembering random quotes. For me, it's, I love my hair, and cute gargoyle, eh? Anyway, Sins of the Fathers comes highly recommended for people interested in point-and-click games, adventure games, and those interested in Voodoo and New Orleans specifically. There's a remake, but I never played it, chiefly because they replaced all the cast, so that alone cost the game like 70% of its charm. Okay, with the spoiler-free section out of the way, let's talk spoilers for a spell. And 1, 2, 3, alright. I guess Dr. John was going to be a big player the second I heard his voice. You don't get Michael Dorn during the height of TNG's popularity just to have him play an irrelevant side character. I really didn't expect them to go that far with him though, but I appreciate that they did. Dr. John is a completely whacked out murderous psycho, but he manages to present himself as this calm and collected museum owner. Great stuff. Malia, I don't have much to say about. She's the usual femme fatale character, although I do like how she was genuinely in love with Gabriel, not just using her for her own goals. The game, I don't think, really delves into that, but their immediate infatuation with each other was probably mostly due to the magical reincarnation nonsense going on. That or Malia really has a thing for messy bed hair. Gabe's family history was pretty interesting. Gabe's ancestor fell in love with Tetelo, right? But then she stole the family artifact and did some evil shit with it, so he had to put her down. Not to bog this whole thing down with culture war stuff, but you just know that if they made the game today, Gabriel's ancestor would be portrayed as the heckin' evil white man who couldn't stand a strong, independent black woman, instead of the Christ-built hero who did what he had to do that he's portrayed as here. Moving on, I gotta tell you, I did not expect to be walking around a fucking German castle when I booted up the game. Dude, a dragon? A fucking dragon blows fire on you and now you're ready to be a badass monster hunter? The whole Shadow Hunter mythos is super cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops in the sequels. Kinda reminds me of Supernatural, actually, with how Sam and Dean took over monster hunting from their dad. Finally, the whole ending sequence can be a bit frustrating. If you go to Dr. John's room, he'll always kill you, so you should save before checking his room out. The whole underground voodoo chamber might be the biggest trip in the game. It's like Afro-futuristic galactic empire? They just go all out with this stuff. Gigantic sci-fi chambers with ceremonial masks, fucking high-tech drums to perform incantations. Was Malia behind all of that? Was she secretly just a massive geek who wanted to LARP as a Flash Gordon villain? There are burning questions left unanswered here, people. In any case, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Tune in next time when I'll talk about a comic featuring quite possibly the single most popular horror icon of all time. See you there.